Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Fascina el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin mi naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Maybe it's even yours. That's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Alberto is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants here in Puerto Vallarta. Those are the Lapa Lapa, the Eldorado Beach Club, and at night, that beach club transforms into the ever-so-romantic Vista Grill with those dramatic views of the Los Muertos Pier, all lit up at night in beautiful colors. And, of course, at Lapa Lapa, you can enjoy that same view of the Los Muertos Pier all day long for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week, we are going to learn about the Digital Nomads in Puerto Vallarta. And I have a really neat guest that will talk with us about them, those digital nomads. That guy is Chase Buckner. He runs a place called Vallarta Co-Work. But before we get to Chase, let's see what's happening in Puerto Vallarta this week, the 11th of April, 2018. They are going to be running a marathon on April the 15th in Puerto Vallarta. They'll be celebrating that 100-year anniversary with a centennial marathon. The event is open to runners and to the general public, so if you're at all interested, you have just a couple days to get going here. They are going to have prizes of 10,000, 6,000, and 5,000 pesos for the first, second, and third place finishers. So if you're fast, you might want to consider it. The start and the finish of the marathon will be at the port terminal. They begin at 6:30 in the morning, and the half marathon race also begins at 6:30 in the morning, also at the port. Registration is 600 pesos. You can register up until April 13th. Like I said, just a couple days left to do that. Check out in the show notes. There's a link there if you're interested. And take part in that centennial marathon in Puerto Vallarta. I have a map of the route, as well as a map for the full and half marathon right in the show notes. So have a look, check out the link, go for it. Okay. Speaking of the Los Muertos Pier, my buddy Brad posted some really old videos. Well, not that old. He posted some old videos that he took back in 2012 of the Los Muertos Pier when they were building it. It's pretty cool. He has two videos. He's got one of the front side and one of the rear side, or, he's got them from all sides. And then he also has a video of the grand opening of the pier. So check those out. I have them in the show notes for this episode. And if you're at all interested in seeing what it looked like during the construction period, it's pretty cool. Brad and Tammy, they were on the show back in May, and we had a really great interview. If you haven't listened to that one, I have a link to it in the show notes, or you can just Google "fun things to do in Puerto Vallarta" with Brad and Tammy on the Googlers, and it'll pop right up. It's a pretty popular episode. I have in the show notes to that one a video of Brad eating crickets on the streets of El Pitial, and they had some pretty good stories. He had some medical issues, actually, when he was down there, and he saw like a witch doctor. He operated on himself. He has some pretty interesting stories. So if you haven't listened to that one, check it out. It's very entertaining. Okay, I want to talk with you guys about carrying around your passports and your IDs, like your driver's licenses, when you're vacationing in paradise. I mean, carrying it on your person, okay? This was prompted by a post that I read a couple of days ago on the face bags, and the poster was actually stopped by a traffic cop in Puerto Vallarta. He was told by the cop that he had committed a violation of some sort or another, and well, I don't know what it was, illegally parking or, a legal turn or whatever it was. Anyway, the cop asked to see his license, and then he handed over his license, and the cop told him that he would be holding on to the license until he paid him, the cop, 500 pesos. It was the fine for the parking, is what the cop told him. So the guy didn't really know what to do. He got a little nervous, and he paid the cop. And then the cop turned around, gave him back his license, and off he went. So here's the thing. That cop was a bad cop. He was looking for a payoff, right? Now, we really have never talked about this, but it's pretty important. You should never be carrying around your passport and your ID when you're walking around in Vallarta. Before you leave for your vacation, make black and white copies of your passport and your driver's license. When I talk about your passport, open it up to the picture page, lay it flat, get a picture of that, and then open it up to the back cover, which has the number of the passport, and there's like a little scanner code there. And you lay that flat and you take a picture of that. That will suffice for pictures of your passport. Make several of them. And do the same thing with your driver's license, front and back copies. And by all means, make them in black and white. Do not make them in color. Because if they are in color, actually Mexican authorities consider that a form of counterfeiting. So you don't want to get in trouble. And just because you have a fancy color printer doesn't mean that you want to be accused of counterfeiting by the Mexican authorities. So let's not do that. Make all your copies of these in black and white only. Okay? And then when you get to your hotel or your condo, or that place under the overpass, wherever you're staying, lock up your passport and your ID until you get ready to come home. You don't need them. You will not need them unless you're going to the bank to exchange money. Otherwise, you're not going to need them, all right? Now, when a cop or a person of authority actually takes the ID from you, that is actually how they do it. And you don't get it back until you actually go in and you pay your fine. But you don't pay the cop. You never pay the cop. Unless, of course, you feel like your life's in danger. Now, if that happens, take a photo of the cop, ask to see his or her badge, and if all else fails, just take a picture of the vehicle that they're riding in. Then you take that to a tour. There's an office. It's a tourist office, and it's in Lazaro Cardenas Park. It's a building near the corner of Pino Suarez and Venustiano Carranza. It's right in the park, and they usually have a lawyer or two right there for you gringos out there. They got people to help. And anyway, I have a picture of the location that you go if you are having issues. Again, find them in my show notes. So, don't carry your passports or licenses around. Make sure that you have black and white copies of them and carry those around with you. Make a couple of them so that if you wash them or whatever it is, you've got them. And just don't hand over the real document to the cop. Now, if that's all you have and you're faced with that situation, you need to tell the cop that you will meet them at the traffic counter and then pay the fine there. Chances are they might think that you've called their bluff and you might get back your license and not even spend a dime on whatever it is that they want to, charge you for. Anyway, I have the address of the Ayuntamiento de Puerto Vallarta. That's the city hall. And it's actually close to the marina. They've got It's just, a little bit inland from the marina in the Agua Zarca Colonia. And that's where you're going to tell the officer that you'll be paying the ticket. And then you go do that. Now, can you remember that? Now, that ought to get his attention. Hey, guess what, senor? Officer, I'll meet you at the Ayuntamiento, amigo. That'll get his attention. Anyway, I have a map of City Hall in the show notes for this episode, so get familiar with it if you like, and learn the word. Ayuntamiento, ayuntamiento. Come on, you can learn it. Anyway, I also have, like I said, I have in the show notes pictures and the location for that office in Lazaro Cardenas Park. Okay, let's get on with our interview, shall we? The internet has made things like working from home an option for lots of people out there. There's many businesses that allow employees to perform part or full-time, at their homes, at their desks, at home. Now, have you ever wondered what it might be like if you could go anywhere in the world, anywhere you like Puerto Vallarta, for example, and do your job from there? I know I have. Now, all that you would need would be good internet speed, a comfortable place to get your work done, a place with very few distractions, and maybe even a place with people like you who've managed to ditch their regular 9-to-5 world, dodging the congested highways and byways that would normally take them to their place of employment for the life of a digital nomad. That's right, a digital nomad. Now, digital nomads have found a way to get their jobs done from anywhere in the world. And one of those places in Puerto Vallarta is called Vallarta Co-Work. And now I met Chase Buckner quite by accident. I was talking with a guy named Tex. I know that sounds funny, but Tex was working the door at Joe Jack's Fish Shack, and I was asking if I could get an interview with the owner of Joe Jack's, and I explained what I do, and his face lit up. He said, have you spoken with Chase Buckner? He'd be a great interview for you. So I took his advice. I walked over to Vallarta Co-Work, and I introduced myself, and I asked him if he would tell you guys what he does in Paradise. Now, his place is right on the second floor of the Santander Bank building, right next to the Angolo di Napoli. Remember Bella Napoli? Right there, right next to the parking structure on the Malecon, right behind that parking structure. Not on the Malecon side, but on the opposite side, right before that Highway 200 goes up and over the bridge, right? So let's go right now to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, to the offices of Vallarta Co-Work, and meet the head digital nomad himself, Chase Buckner. Hey, Chase, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
Listen, tell my listeners a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what was your path to Puerto Vallarta?
Sure. So I am from a place called Doylestown outside of Philadelphia, and I was fresh out of college, 2 years into professional teaching. I actually taught English, high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Had a early life crisis. I felt like I was staring down the next 35 years of my life, and I was like, man, am I ready to commit to this? So a friend of mine and I decided to take a road trip, and I quickly realized I could not afford Europe. So we said, how about we go through Mexico to Costa Rica? And that's what kicked the whole thing off back in 2009. And I had to work while I was traveling because I was broke. And so that got me into online marketing, which is now my career. And yeah, I got down here. It's actually a really cool story.
Oh, yeah.
So we got here, and I was working every day. And we were only supposed to be here for about a month. And I really fell in love with it. I was actually in Santa Barbara for 6 months before we left. Mm-hmm. And I loved the surf. I loved the nature. I didn't really get in with the people. It was a much different crowd than where I'm from.
Yeah.
And when I got to Puerto Vallarta, it was all of that, plus really friendly people, really good food. And so we were going to be here for about a month or two, and then fate sort of stepped in. And my, as it often does, my computer charger broke, so it would sustain my charge, but it wouldn't lower it. So I couldn't unplug my computer. So I was like, look, we can't leave until I get a new charger.
Oh, this is good.
You know where this is going. So I order one, and it took 6 weeks before it showed up.
And how handy.
In that 6 weeks, we decided we would just spend the rest of our trip here because we liked it so much. And that took us right up to Christmas. We flew home. I left my car here, and I was like, as sort of an excuse, like, hey, I have to go right back, and deal with my car, mom and dad. Like, so I did, and I think I met my wife 3 weeks later, and it's been almost 9 years since.
Whoa. Okay,
Yeah.
so your wife, is she from here?
She is from Mexico City, but her family moved here when she was, I think, 14.
Yeah.
So she
How
basically
rare. That never happens.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of that here.
Yeah, lucky her, right?
Yeah, well, lucky you too, I got to say.
Yeah.
Probably, right?
Lucky us, I guess.
I imagine so. So the way I found you two different ways. I found you because your friend Tex over at Joe Jack said, go talk
Nice.
to him.
Yeah,
And
Tex
so-
is a good friend.
Yeah, and the other one was I had a listener who said, hey, how's the internet in Puerto Vallarta? So why don't you tell us how the internet is in Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah, I mean, the internet and going back to shipping, ordering things have changed a lot since I've been here.
Mm.
And I'm sure you can attest to this as well,
Yeah.
but or attest to this. The internet here is weird. In some areas, it's amazing. World class, really. Where we are right now on the border of La Zona Romantica, or Old Town, is the epicenter of great internet in Puerto Vallarta.
Mm-hmm.
And as you radiate out, it sort of gets worse and worse. And so you can find acceptable internet in most of the areas, depending on how congested that neighborhood is. Basically, how many people are hooked up to the nearest junction box will affect that. But in Old Town, they have fiber plans. So we started this co-working business that we're at right now, Vallarta Co-Work, a little over a year ago, and around the idea that, hey, this really fast internet, if you know how to manage it, combined with a nice environment that's cold, so we have OXO-sized air conditioners.
Yeah.
Will really open the door for this whole new type of traveler, which is what we sort of talked about off air a minute ago, which is the digital nomad movement.
Mm-hmm.
So every day more and more people are going, hey, why can't I do my job from home? So they ask their boss, can I work from home? And if that goes well, then they say, well, how would my boss know if I were actually here or on the beach in Puerto Vallarta where I want to be? And so once they flip that switch is when they start searching and finding us, and then they come and they say, I'm here on a trial, and if this works, man, I'm selling everything and I'm moving here.
Wow.
And it's so you get those people, and then you get the nomads who traditionally they travel Asia,
Mm-hmm.
Bali, Indonesia, all those areas. That's sort of where co-working sort of took its roots, and we're just trying to put Mexico, Puerto Vallarta on that travel map.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so tell everybody about this place that we're in.
Yeah.
Kind of describe it to them. I'll have pictures, and you can see them in my show notes when you go to www.puertovallartatravelshow.com and check them out for this blog post. But
Yeah.
tell us, give us a description.
Sure. So it's actually an old restaurant. It was a restaurant that had been dormant for, I think, 2 years. And we have a really cool space. I mean, we almost didn't do it because we couldn't find the right space.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we found this, we were like, oh, perfect. So you come up the stairs, we're on the second floor, and you walk into this sort of loungy area. We've got some couches and stuff where people chill out, take naps. And then it steps down into this really big area surrounded by glass windows where you've got the bamboo trees along the Rio Quale in the back. You can catch a piece of the ocean to the right. Unfortunately, there's a parking garage that you're looking through, but hey, we'll take what we can get.
Sure.
And
In
we
real
have
estate, they call it a peekaboo ocean view. That's what they call
Exactly.
that.
It's-
So yeah,
it's certainly
it sells.
peekaboo.
It sells. It's
but
good.
you can see it. We've got a kitchen area, which is cool, and then we have this sort of backspace that we're in now, which is our longer term, smaller team space.
Mm-hmm.
And in this area, we have 2 phone booths, which are just small little rooms with some sound tiles on the walls. The one we're actually turning into more of a recording studio for people like you who come through, who are doing podcasting, or a lot of people who are doing webinars lately.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, and it's almost like if you build it, they will come, and here you are.
And here I am. It's so it's so funny, you guys. I came walking in here, and I go, we're out in the office, with other people working, and I said, "Well, we want to do this interview in a place that's quiet." He goes, "Oh, I got a place that we built just for you." And so we're in this booth, and it's got the foam buffers on the walls to knock down the echoes and the noises that we normally see, which is why you're hearing really good sound on this particular
I'd
episode.
imagine it will be. Yep.
Yeah, so I see you guys. I'm saving your ears this time, and you can thank Chase for that.
And you're welcome back anytime with any of your other guests if you need it.
Hey, look at you. All right, cool. So, yeah, so he's got 2 of these little studios too, but
We actually have a third out in the common space too.
oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one gets used a lot because it's first come, first serve. So
Uh-huh.
all of the short-term people are hopping in and out of there all the time.
Right, yeah, and they call them the phone booths.
That's
So
right, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so what kind of internet speed do you get around here?
Here we have 2 100 megabit lines. And if you're interested, if your listeners are interested, I'll go into a little bit about
please,
it.
yeah.
I think this is actually something cool that most people don't know. So most people think internet speed and they think that number.
Mhm.
100, oh, that's a big number. It must be really fast. Internet speed is 2 things. So it's bandwidth and latency. And the best analogy I've heard is if you think of a river. And bandwidth, which is the number we're talking about, 100 megabit, and megabyte, I always can get confused as well. But the 100 MB that you'll see on the package is bandwidth, so the width of the river. But what really makes internet feel fast is the latency, which is the speed of the river.
Mm.
And so oftentimes, and anyone who's lived here and had an internet plan can probably attest to this, you're paying for 8 and you're getting less than 1. And how can that be? Or you're paying for 10 and you're getting 4, but you know what? I can do everything I need to do. And so that's when you start talking about, look, most people, if you're just using the internet for browsing web pages, checking email, that sort of thing, you 1 megabit could feel really fast to you if your latency was fast. Meaning you're close to the nearest hub.
Uh-huh.
That hub isn't over saturated with too many lines, which happens here in Mexico, which is regulated in the U.S. Bandwidth really only comes into play if you're moving large files. So if you're a photographer or a videographer or somebody who's constantly trying to upload big files into the cloud, all that happens faster with a wider river, right? You can push more water through it at once.
Mm.
But most people just need latency. And so it's funny because I went to a co-working conference, co-work owners in Mexico City. There's probably 20 amazing spaces in Mexico City.
Wow.
And their number one problem collectively was internet. And I was like, what? I thought in Mexico City and Guadalajara, the internet was great. But it's not just the line you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have 100, and here in a lot of condo buildings in the romantic zone, we have fiber, right?
Right.
And yes, they showed up with a fiber line and stuck it into the wall, but you've got 150 units all trying to access it at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
It just turns into a mess. So you need a router. You need somebody who understands how to program that router. You can do all sorts of cool things like what we do here. For example, traffic shaping, speed prioritization. If you're making a Skype call or a FaceTime call or a Google Hangout, we reserve a certain amount of bandwidth so that no matter what everyone else is doing, your calls will always be clear.
Mm-hmm.
They won't drop. So stuff like that is sort of the magic love that we put into the internet here. And it makes a huge difference. So it's not always just the big number.
Yeah.
That was a sort of a long way of saying
Well,
that.
well, listen, I think most people are really appreciative of that explanation. I certainly am.
You only need 3 megabit really to stream Netflix where you won't notice a difference. To put that's sort of the gauge that we use is like, okay, do you have one person watching Netflix? You only need 3. If you've got a family, then yeah, you need 5 or a little bit more. But we have 100, 2 100s.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your clients.
Yeah.
Your the people that come here.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about them. Or do you have some interesting ones?
It's funny. I just posted an Instagram this morning, or I just sort of panned the room, and in that pan, I passed an online travel agent. I passed a human resources guy. I passed a girl who's got a new online wine retail startup, and I passed. Who else did I pass? An online marketer like me. 4 people around me, 4 different conversations. Oh, and then I passed an API developer. So just the conversations at any given time are really varied. And if you're a geeky sort of person, it's also often very cool.
Right. It's probably like, just tickles you to no end, just like looking around going, wow,
It's
I
so
put
cool.
this space together and look at these people that are coming.
And I think there's a misconception that the digital nomads are all young tech people. A lot of people that we've met are old people, maybe even retired people who are sort of finding their second wind and are leveraging tools that we have now, podcasts and their phones and social media and everything. And they're starting that, boutique button thing that they always dreamt of. And you know what I mean? Or like whatever it is. And it's working for them. And when you meet people who can travel the world and still work, and you see how happy they are, it's like, man, it's a bigger thing that's going on right now than people realize. And I think we're sort of at the epicenter of it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, wow.
Someone just turned on a fan, so hopefully it doesn't kill our beautiful sound.
It's okay. So these people that you hear talking and stuff like that, and they're doing. Some of them are doing what you are doing, which is, online.
Yeah.
Now, tell me what you do. I mean, exactly.
Sure.
What do you do? Are you one of those guys that call me up in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, do you want to buy a sofa or something like that?"
Not.
No, you're not that
Definitely
guy.
Definitely not.
No, all right, tell me what you do.
I'm the guy that calls that company and says, "What are you doing? Wasting your money, having people call and annoy people. Let's put it into Facebook ads, and let me show you how to really get a return." So when I first got down here, I was working for my friend when I was traveling. He had an online refurbished cell phone startup called the Blue Dot. My buddy Chris Samaras, purebred entrepreneur, lovely guy. He was like, look, I need someone to figure out this online marketing thing, and I need somebody to handle the customer service because I'm getting like 100, 200 emails a day. So I did that. That got me into it. I got down here, and the customer service side just wore on me. And after a while, I was like, look, you got to find someone else to do this piece because I'm not, all these people are just annoying. Anyway, I ended up taking a job with a company here called Journey Mexico. And if they're not on your radar, you should definitely look them up because Zach Rabinor, the CEO, and his wife Rebecca are amazing. Their business is, what they've done is insane. So they're the leading luxury travel company in Mexico.
Okay.
And their home office is here. I think they have an office in Mexico City now and one in Cancun. And sort of the same thing. It was like, hey, man, this online marketing stuff is happening. We need a webmaster. We need somebody who can sort of figure stuff out, tell us where we need to go, etc. So I took that job. I probably wasn't really qualified for that job, but I took it. But I think I was by the time I left. I set them up with their first blog. It went really well. They have a great readership. And but I was like, man, I think I could do this online marketing thing on my own if I just knew a developer. And so then I met Graham Maddock, who's also a resident here. He's British, who's an amazing photographer, videographer, and he used to be a developer. And I think we were just met in a bar. So I think we met at Alaska Diner.
Not there anymore.
No, I know. Tears. I love Roger. Love you, Roger, if you hear this. So we met in a bar. We were hit it off, and I was like, look, let's do this thing. Like, I'll quit my job, and we'll start a little agency. And he was like, all right, yeah, why not? So we were trying to find a name, and back then I had this white English bulldog, Lola, and Graham was like, let's just call it. Graham and I are funny. We have the exact opposite taste. So every time we have to make a decision about names or colors or logos or whatever, we're completely on the wrong side of the fence with each other. And then finally something just happens and we're like, yeah, that's fine. So he was like, let's just call it White Bulldog Media. And I was like, I love it.
Excellent. Yeah.
So we
Sounds
set up,
good.
yeah, we hung our shingle. We did some work. We did some good stuff. We built a lot of good relationships here. But pretty quickly we were like, this isn't going to work, because Graham's like, I really don't want to be a developer anymore. I want to get into photography.
Mm-hmm.
And so we split up. And that's when I met my current boss, Matt, who was sort of doing the same thing in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I met him. He emailed probably the most famous social media marketer right now in the world, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And through Gary, I met Matt, and I checked out his site, and he had an opening. And I was like, oh, I could do that. So I called him up, and he was like, yeah, it's really just me. And I have a buddy who's a programmer. And I'm like, this is sounding familiar.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, I need a rock star number 2. And he's like, and I was like, that's cool, because I just tried to be the number 1, and it didn't really fit. I wasn't into all that responsibility, and but I could do number 2. And he was like, awesome. And I was like, there's just one catch. He's like, what? I'm like, I live in Mexico and I don't want to leave. And he was like, fantastic, because I couldn't afford you if you were in the US. And it was this perfect pair of, okay, you're in a really low cost of living environment,
Right.
but you've got US skills and talent. So that we really took off. I mean, I think he was doing like $10,000 a month in revenue then, and that was about 5 years ago. And now we're $1 million a year agency.
Nice.
So yeah, from here, he and I have built out a team of, I think we're like 20 people now. And yeah, I just manage the company remotely, and he's the head. And he gets the clients, and I make sure that we execute whatever it is he sold them.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a dream, man.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Well, you obviously have to have the talent, but I mean, think about that, you guys. I mean, here he is. Now, I come over here and I figure he's going to be behind a desk, helping people like the librarian as they come in. And here's your little pass, and go over and sit over there. When I didn't know what to expect. And here he is, and he's sitting there. He's working with the guys, and so yeah, he's actually, he's working. He's working and working.
Well, that's one of the other things that people don't know about co-working and co-work spaces is it's a lot of people think, oh, I've heard the term, it's like a shared office, right? Like you all share a printer so that like you don't all have to buy your own printers or something like that. But there's this camaraderie and this serendipity that can happen because you never know who you're sitting next to. And I can't tell you how many times where it's like someone's like, oh man, and maybe who knows what their business is. And they're like, my website broke. And is anyone here a developer? And someone will put their hand up and they're like, oh, that's just like a little, you're missing like a bracket in the code. And here, I'll fix that for you. And it's like, boom. It's like, wow, did you just see what happened? Like, he just literally saved that lady so much headache and probably money and all this stuff. And time. And yeah, so it's really fun. And it's fun when you have a job, like a full-time job like me, to be able to just stand up and hop into who knows what conversation to mentally take a break for a couple of minutes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Working is way more fun when you're doing it around cool people and not coworkers that you have to be next to.
Yeah, exactly right. And usually when you're with coworkers that you have to be next to, they're just talking about nothing, and you're not getting anything done.
Yeah.
So,
or you're all sharing the same frustrations at the same time, so none of you are happy at that moment,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. And we do a free day pass for that reason. Just come in and hang out for the day.
Right.
And hopefully you go, whoa, that was really cool.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you charge? What do you charge for people to come in and hook into your mad internet here?
I'm so bad with this, which is probably the reason why I'm not a CEO, right?
Yeah. Well, you could say you don't know off the top
I
of your
always
head,
say go to the website. The pricing's on the website.
Right.
But it's I can give you a ballpark. It's like 200 or 250 pesos a day if you want to do it by the day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 1,000 pesos a week if you just want to be in the common space. And then it goes up from there depending on how much of a private space that you want.
Okay,
if you're going to be longer term.
And at the recording of this particular podcast, the peso is very close to 20 pesos to the dollar. It's around 19.5 today or something like that.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry about you Canadians. I don't know what it is in dollarettes, but I can tell you this,
Loonies?
that, if you are in a place, and there are so many places in this city, even some of the finest hotels who have just the most god-awful internet.
Yeah.
And if you need it, to survive, you're going to have to find a place like this. And I've walked past some of these internet cafes on the street. I'm not seeing too much air conditioning.
No.
I'm not seeing too many of the, nice surroundings like you're seeing here,
It's you just triggered a thought, which is another thing that's really interesting about this movement that's happening that I don't think people are fully grasping yet. In the travel world, it's all about who gets them first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've got a family with money, or a gay couple with dual income, or whoever, a young professional is doing really well, and they're coming to town, and they got money to spend. Whoever gets traditionally, whoever got the accommodation first had the opportunity to then sell them all sorts of stuff, tours, recommend restaurants for commission, all this kind of stuff. It's like the Holy Grail. Who gets them first?
Mm-hmm.
If they're planning a wedding, it's like if the caterer gets them first, they might plan the whole thing. Now it's the co-work gets them first because it's the first thing they need to know. They have solid internet and a quiet place to make calls for business.
Yeah.
So when I travel, it's the first thing. And when that light bulb went off, I'm like, I'm not even going to Airbnb first. I'm Googling co-works. And once I find one that looks good, then I go into Airbnb and look for something near the co-work. Mm-hmm. So everything's sort of being flipped on its head these days, and it's pretty interesting.
All right. So you're one of these nomads, and nomads when you're talking about the
Yeah.
world, what do you call them? The traveling nomad? What'd you call it?
Oh, the digital nomad.
Digital. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's sorry. So when you talk about the digital nomad,
I call them the geographically liberated.
Yeah. So they're just they're traveling. They're not necessarily doing a travel blog or anything. They're free of any kind of encumbrance, like their home.
They work and travel. Yep.
And so that's just it. So, wow, that's so interesting. It really is.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on around, like remote year. People do it in groups for a year at a time, and it's a whole new industry. And it's when you play it out, the implications are going to have to come, the regulations that are going to have to come or try to come, because when you look at me, I'm an American working for an American company. I also own a Mexican business. I'm paying taxes in two places,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm spending my main revenue in a foreign country. All of it, basically. What happens if that becomes a serious amount of, the GDP going somewhere else, or you know what I mean?
Right.
And now, and I'm doing it, I'm paying taxes.
Yeah,
A lot of
right.
digital nomads are not.
Are not, yeah.
And you have people, giving up their passports. And Estonia, this is interesting,
Yeah.
is at the forefront of this movement. They've created this thing called an e-resident, where you can get a passport without being a physical resident in Estonia. So nomads are becoming Estonians, e-Estonians, and getting bank accounts there. And now we're using cryptocurrency that the government can't touch, and it's a whole new world.
Oh, wow. Now you're blowing my mind, dude.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on.
What was the most interesting, or so far, the most interesting digital nomad you've run into?
Oh, good question. I think my favorite they're called FBAers, which stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. So these are people who've started a business. They travel the world, but they have built this supply chain where whatever the product is, they're either making it or they're getting it somewhere. They're having it packaged up the way that Amazon wants it, shipped directly to Amazon. It gets listed in Amazon, and then it becomes a game of making your product show up in the Amazon search algorithm higher and higher. And then when someone buys it, Amazon ships it for you. So fulfillment by Amazon. And so it's a really interesting game, man. I've seen people selling the most random stuff. And it's like, how did you even, what? Like spatulas. Like there was a guy in here. I'm like, well, what's your product? He's like, it's a spatula. And they never like to tell you what their product is because they don't want someone else jumping in on their.
Well, yeah, because I've got my own secret spatula, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's high competitive. Some really random products, and some of it's kind of sad because it's this whole game of like fly to China, find a factory that makes something for like dirt cheap, undercut all American retailers, get it in Amazon, and it's just sort of like a price race to the bottom. But yet they live an amazing lifestyle from doing it. And then others are really cool stuff. Like one friend I have, I won't give away his product, but he sourced a product from Indonesia that's like made by a family there. And it's something that you wouldn't be able to get in America otherwise. And again, a really random product, but he's doing really well. And I think their stories are really cool because they're really sort of making their own destinies.
Yeah,
on the back of technology.
Yeah, they're standing up, with their arms flexed, saying, "I've done it, man. I'm making money. I'm where I want to be.
Yep.
I'm where I want to be whenever I want to be."
And they're at the heart of this whole change. Part of this whole change is the future of everything is the shared economy, the Uber, the Airbnb, all this stuff. It's just it's a guillotine for the middleman.
Yeah.
And these kids or people or whoever they are going straight to the manufacturer. Like they go to China, they go to a bunch of factories, they find one they like, and then they sell it straight to the consumer through the platform of Amazon. And it's like, man, so many people. You see it left and right. Businesses going out of business because they were just the middleman.
Yeah.
And we don't need the middleman anymore.
Right. Well, that's why you're seeing a lot of retail shopping centers emptying out.
Yes.
And it's you've got to figure out what they're going to do with all those. I'm guessing old folks' homes probably work really good.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, you know what? They've got a lot of rooms, right?
Yeah.
They probably have some restaurants built in.
Yeah.
So there, I think we can start something right now.
There you go.
Right.
Exactly. We'll put a co-work inside too, and then we'll teach them how to sell on Amazon, and they can unretire together.
Yes. Oh my God! Just all we have to do is just sit here and just make all this stuff up.
The longer we go, the better we'll be.
Chase, have you had any crazy people ever walk into your place?
No, but we get a lot of very confused people who walk in expecting an internet cafe, traditional internet cafe.
Yeah.
And like you walked in, and I don't think anyone like attended to you right away. We don't have so.
I didn't know what to expect.
If my partner Miguel or I are doing something, oftentimes I'll walk back in and someone will look very bewildered, sort of. But
what is this? Where am I?
Yeah, a lot of time people come in and they want to like print stuff out or do stuff like that, and we're not. So we just send them to the internet cafes down the street.
Right.
So yeah, it's very different than an internet cafe.
All right, tell me about the internet cafes down the street. What are they like?
There's lots of them all over town, and they're usually pretty small. They're usually kind of hot, and they'll just have like rows of computers that you can log into. And
are they safe?
No, I mean potentially no.
Yeah.
If you were a cyber criminal, those are the places where you clean up. They could be very safe if the person running it knows what they're doing. Then it could be very safe. But yeah, I mean traditionally,
avoid.
Like I wouldn't recommend printing out important documents or something like that. I mean, that's sort of a gamble.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so keep that in mind, you guys, when you walk past one of those and you think, I'll just check in here.
Yeah, you don't want to be like printing your passport or scanning your credit card or something like that.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
All right. All right, you've been here for a long time. You've been here since 2006, you said?
2009.
2009? Okay,
yeah.
I just added 3 more years to it.
Yeah.
But okay, but 2009, that'll do.
Yeah.
What do you think about the growth that's happening here in Puerto Vallarta?
So my friends laugh because I think no one knows anyone who's moved within the Bay more times than we have, my wife and I. And so we've experienced a lot of the areas. So we lived in Old Town first, then we moved to like Versailles, then we lived in Punta Mita when we had our first son, and then we lived in Bucerias at the far end, and now we're technically in Mezcales, although we're still right on the main highway. so sort of Bucerias still. Nuevo, in between Nuevo and Bucerias. And Old Town's insane. I mean, what's going on? Like, it's not going to be Old Town for very much longer. There are so many condo buildings being built. But to me, I'm an optimist, and to me, that's just that just tells you how cool it is. This area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of fun, and so I'm all for that. I think I'm most excited for the urban legend that's been floating around since I've been here, which is
Yes.
that somebody is building a secret highway from Guadalajara to Puerto Vallarta that's going to cut the drive in half.
Yep.
And for years it was nonsense, and but apparently it's real.
Yeah, it is
So like
real.
the first leg of it is actually done. I just drove it the other day. We went to Mexico City for New Year's,
Yeah.
and the first leg is done. So that cuts off like about a half an hour right there.
Right.
When it's really done and you can get to Guadalajara in 2.5 hours or whatever it's going to be, that's really going to change a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people with money in Guadalajara who are going to be thinking vacation home, and thinking, more trips to the beach. So what scares me is the road system here is so bad. I mean, from my house to here is only 6 miles, but it often takes almost an hour because you cross 1 million speed bumps and 1 million red lights,
Right.
and they're not in sync, so that's my biggest frustration, and traffic, especially in Old Town these days, is really bad, and it's only going to get worse. So that's my big fear, is how are we going to, or how's the city or the cities.
Right.
Another interesting thing about the Bay, as you know, it's actually 2 states, several different cities, a lot of different politicians in there, and so the greater good and the public service stuff is often a crapshoot, I think, is what I've observed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's a big question for me, is what are they going to do with the transportation of all these people, getting everyone in and out, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was talking with Elvira Moncoya about that over at the Board of Tourism, and I said, so what's going to happen when that road opens up? And her eyes went wide, and she's all, well, we're not quite sure.
Yeah.
But it is gonna be an explosion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's going to be, it's going to go both ways.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to see people that are going to take that day trip to Guadalajara.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And,
I can't wait.
In
the summertime, Guadalajara is noticeably cooler, so it's nice to get out of the heat. And if you can skirt out in 2.5 hours as opposed to 4.5, it's a big difference.
Yeah, you might even do it.
Yes, I will, for sure. And I think the other thing that I think is true is that there will be sort of a back channel so that all the 18-wheelers and stuff won't have to come through downtown.
Oh, okay.
So all those
They'll have a truck
trucks
lane.
that are going from, north to south won't be clogging everything up along the way through the, downtown and all that,
Yeah,
which would be very cool.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Wow. Okay, so let's go over to our fun round, the one that we do with all of my listeners.
All
And I
right.
told you about that before, and that is, I ask you what your favorite places to eat are because we
Okay.
all travel on our stomachs. And so for breakfast, now you're living up in the Bucerias area, so you've
Yep.
got a big long list probably of places that you would like. But what do you like for breakfast?
Most of my spots are down here, though.
Okay.
I'm down here a lot, and I haven't done enough to explore Bucerias. Although I will say my favorite eggs Benedict are in Bucerias at Karen's on the beach. She does a really good eggs Benedict.
Great.
Breakfast, my go-to spots are Memo's Pancake House. And I always like to hype him up because of the whole backstory. Anyone who's been here long enough to know, I think there's a little drama around the breakfast game. And I love Johnny Steiner. So Steve over there, he's my buddy. I like that guy a lot. He's interesting. He's like a Roger character. There are a few characters around town,
Uh-huh.
and I like those kind of people. So I like to shoot the shit with him before work.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually talking with somebody who said that those guys serve one of the greatest hash browns and just really
Well,
good.
They might be the only guys serving biscuits and gravy,
Yeah.
And I think it's cool because it's like the best of U.S. diner experience, diner
Right.
breakfast, but also Mexican, everything that you're looking for when you're here. So I really, and now they're going to do dinner. He's doing really cool, like a San Francisco classics, to try to catch that theater crowd that's across the street now.
Yeah.
And sounds like some really cool stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how that goes for him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
All right. What about lunch?
Lunch, I go to Mikey's Deli is right around the corner. So being here, a lot of us grab sandwiches from there all the time. Salud Superfood is another favorite of our customers, our members here. They're doing really cool stuff over there, and it's always cool to eat better, right?
Right.
So
So there's a couple things that you could hurt yourself with. But
yeah. But you'll feel better about yourself if you eat there for lunch. And they're really cool about delivering to us even in the high season. So that makes it nice for.
They deliver, guys. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
Or is it, no, they deliver to you?
They deliver if you're in Vallarta Co-Work.
Okay. Never mind. I take it all back. You'll find out.
No,
Go ask them, and
I
they
think
might tell
their
you.
policy is in the off seasons that they deliver to everyone in Old Town. But last I heard, he said we'll keep delivering to you, and we're gonna try to keep delivering in general.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think he's doing really well, so
Yeah.
I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Los Muertos Brewing, Connor's a big friend of ours, and so that's a quick lunch too. His pizza special is one of the best deals in town.
Yeah, like pizza and beer for.
You get a slice of pizza and either fries or a side salad, and a beer or a Coke for like 60 pesos or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the pizza's not bad.
Smoking hot deal.
Yeah.
No, really good. If you like East Coast pizza like me, it's the best you're going to find down here
The
for
bomb.
sure. Yes.
All right. Well, what about for dinner, man?
Dinner? So Joe Jack is a really good friend as well. Joe Jack's Fish Shack. They just renovated, and now their new setup is really awesome. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. And then one that I love, Alaska Diner used to be my haunt, which is hilarious because Roger is a polarizing character, as I'm sure you know.
Okay.
And but I used to love hanging out in there. And I still say he made one of the best steaks in town.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly the best value steak. But you know what I really like that people don't talk about a lot is the red cabbage.
Yeah.
That's like my go-to when I have guests visiting. It's on the backside of Old Town. You would never know where it was if someone didn't take you there or tell you.
For sure.
You probably don't want to walk there, I don't think, at night.
Not at night.
You take a cab, and but to me, that's part of the allure. And it's just really good, classic Mexican food. So their chile rellenos are awesome. They've got 2 types of moles, which I didn't even know there were. There's like the Puebla style and then the Oaxaca style. And the waiters are characters. The chef is awesome. And it's cool. I mean, there aren't many. I feel like living here long term is awesome because we have so many options and so many great restaurants. But the traditional Mexican meal that people are looking for when they come here, that's where I take them.
Yeah. And, you do kind of have to look for like that traditional Mexican meal here in Vallarta. It's because, there's cuisines from all over the world.
Yeah.
And then you're going, well, where's the Mexican restaurant,
Yeah. And there's varying styles of it, right? Like El Arrean is a great restaurant, higher-ended Mexican restaurant with, I feel like she puts twists on classics and sort of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is really cool. But just that, traditional style that is in a price range I feel like people are expecting when they come to Mexico, a little value in there.
Mm-hmm.
I like red cabbage a lot.
Wow. I'll have to go up there and check it out.
It's fun, and it's fun. They've got, pictures all over the walls of, classic Vallarta photos and a lot of like movie stuff in there, and there's some funny stuff. It's a cool spot.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to get up there.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding
Take
me
a
about that,
cab.
by the way. Hey, I walk past there almost every day. It's okay. No
All
worries.
right, all right.
Well, at night, I'll take a cab. I will do that.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me about what your favorite getaway spot would be. If you were going to cut out of town for a day,
Yeah.
where would you go?
So I love to surf. So we try to spend as much time as we can in Punta Mita. That's actually my goal, is to get back to Punta Mita and actually open a pizza shop. It's my destiny.
Really?
Yeah. And Point Break Pizza coming soon.
Okay.
And,
look out, boys and girls.
But like a getaway, I love to go to like camping at Camixto, which is a little beach you got to take a boat to. It's on the way to Jalapa. So if there are going to be waves, I haven't done this in forever, which is sad. You can hop off there, pitch a tent, wake up, surf, hang out. It's a really cool little beach. Jalapa is an awesome getaway, and we've been spending a lot of time over there. We actually hooked the schools up over there with free internet.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Major
Way
project.
to go, bud.
Yeah. And that was cool. So I was spending a lot of time over there. Really, really cool community. Really, I don't know how many places on earth are like that, in that they're so secluded. You have to take a boat to get there. I mean, yes, technically you can take a four-wheeler from Tawito, but you take a boat. It's this really interesting mix of sort of ancient Mexican families and really character-type gringos, a lot of them that were like draft-dodging hippies that, have been there since.
Yeah.
Who literally like built bamboo castles on the hillside.
Oh.
And there's no government, there's no mayor, there's no police.
Really?
Yeah, it's a world within itself. You got to read Bill, one of our long-term members, is a writer here, and he did sort of like an expose on a yoga studio there, and that sort of piqued his curiosity, so he did research and wrote a piece about the history of Jalapa, and it's fascinating. I mean, like, Cortez's cousin or nephew or something basically stormed in there with a bunch of Spanish soldiers, and the people of Jalapa were like, hey, how about we just welcome you here, hang out, have a good time, whatever you need, we got you, and skirt on when you're done. And they were like, sure. And it was like one of the only communities that wasn't ever conquered. And
was it because of the raicilla, or what was that?
I think it might have been, I think.
Like, here,
like
have
I
some
said,
of this.
It's a special place. And stuff like, there's all sorts of really interesting history about Cortez's, whoever it was, his nephew or whatever, he actually built the church that's in Tawito. Like,
oh, he built that church?
Yeah. According to Bill.
Okay, well, Bill knows, right?
So, yeah. That's a really special place. And then, I'll give you two quick ones. One is Las Tortugas, which is to the north. It's like 2 hours in like a banana plantation. There's a cluster of these gorgeous villas. It's a splurge for me, but a lot of times when my parents come and we try to get a big group of people to all go in on a villa up there, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere and it's just awesome, right on the beach. And then Guadalajara. I really like to go to Guadalajara, especially in the summer. Get out of town, get into the city.
Get out of the heat.
Yeah, get out of the heat. And I've met a lot of people, especially in tech in Guadalajara over the years. So it's fun. I go there, I hang out at a co-work and check in on my friends and see what they're up to. And then, stay in a hotel, do the whole,
the tourist thing.
Yeah, I love it.
And you go, God, this internet at this hotel sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And then I hit up P.F. Chang's and I come home.
Nice. Oh, okay. There you go. They got a P.F. Chang's in Guadalajara, huh?
Yeah, they've got a really fancy shopping mall, which is fun if you're missing the whole,
more modern, whatever, accoutrement.
Yeah, exactly. If you're missing the mall and that kind of stuff.
They got a mall here now.
It's fun. Yeah, we got a bunch of malls here now.
Yeah.
They're whatever.
Yeah, I'm not a mall guy, so
it's always weird if you're coming here to go to the mall to be honest. But
yeah, to me it's like it doesn't make any sense. But
yeah,
hey, they built it. Maybe someone will come.
Seems busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something I forgot? Is there something that you want to that you were remembering as you were talking, and then thought maybe I should?
No, I think you did a pretty good job.
I emptied your brain a little bit.
You did. You emptied my brain. I got to plug everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I will plug myself if I could.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. Tell us.
Yeah,
tell us about your place. Tell us, how to find you and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, I've been. I tried to do a YouTube show called Webbing the Surf. that sort of dealt with all these things we're talking about, this digital nomad movement. And I was like, look, I have all these interesting people coming through. I'll just start interviewing them. And it was really cool. We did a bunch, but the whole editing and the filming, and we were doing 2 cameras to try to make it actually interesting, and just sort of pittered out. But podcasting is much more accessible, I feel like, and many more people are listening to podcasts now. So I've sort of switched it into Webbing the Surf, the podcast, and trying to interview a lot of digital nomads, and there seems to be a lot of people who want that. How do I get into that? And a lot of people are like, my current job I could never do remote. So what skills do I need to learn, or what degree could I get, or what, you know what I mean, certification could I obtain that would facilitate a shift into it? So I figure, hey, I mean, I'm around these people every day. I'll just share their stories and
ask them.
Yeah, and ask them. Yeah. So check out Webbing the Surf if you're into the digital nomad movement.
Very good. I'll have a link to that in the show notes too.
Awesome.
Okay, so how do people find you here in Puerto Vallarta?
Well, VallartaCoWork.com is the website for the co-work, and obviously we're on Twitter and Instagram and all that. I'm on Twitter as WC Buckner, so that's the best place for people to find me publicly, is to just hit me up on Twitter.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I try to keep my other social stuff more closed and family oriented and whatnot.
As well you should.
Yeah.
Okay, so your physical address here is,
again.
All right, you know what? This is so funny because most people, you're like a cab driver. It's like, all right, take me to this place, and they go, well, where is it? And then you tell them the streets, and they look at you like, and they go, okay, it's next
all landmarks,
to the
man.
OXXO.
Exactly.
Wait a minute, there's 100 million OXXOs here.
Yeah, I'll give you the cab answer. We're above the Santander Bank at the curve.
Right. Okay, so you guys, if you remember my podcast that I did with Bella Napoli downstairs, which is now D'Angelo di Napoli.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, he had to change. He had to change his name because someone else had it, and he decided he wouldn't fight.
Right.
So if you remember that podcast and you remember what I was talking about, it's right behind the parking structure that's on the Malecon here, and of course right next to the river, and with a beautiful view. Yeah. And with a nice, cool building. Mm-hmm. And with really cool people in it. Yeah. And so if you are in Puerto Vallarta, you need really fast internet just for a day, or if you just need it for a week, or if you need it for the rest of your time in Puerto Vallarta, like your life.
Free day pass on the website. Just drop your name and your email in there and come in for a day, no charge.
Right on.
Yeah.
Chase?
Thanks for stopping by, man.
Hey, dude, thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it.
I'm so pumped to see the podcast movement growing and growing. And at first I was like, who listens to podcasts? But I'm a big Gary Vee fan, and he's been preaching it, and he's like, look, you can do other things while you're listening to a podcast. And for me, I mean, there's so much going on nowadays, especially with work. It's cool that you can just run a podcast and learn something while you're doing other things.
While you're doing just stuff, like mowing your lawn.
Yeah.
So
do you have any of the smart home stuff that's going to make podcasting, even more accessible to the average person? Like the little Alexas or...
Oh, no, I have nothing like that.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, because someday soon, you're going to be able to say, hey, Alexa, play the Puerto Vallarta podcast.
Yeah.
And it'll just play the latest one.
Oh, it'll do it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell my phone to do that. I have a Google phone. I say, I tell it, Book of Knowledge.
There you go.
Find me the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show, and it'll play it for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I should have asked for one for Christmas because I need to get deeper into that stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate you coming by.
Wasn't that interesting? Now, all you have to do is just find a skill, an idea, a product to sell, or something, and then become a digital nomad yourself. Maybe right here in paradise, right here in Puerto Vallarta. Chase was so kind. During my stay, he allowed me to do an interview with Sylvie Scapazzo right here at Vallarta Co-Work, and he was always ready to answer any questions that I had. I checked out Chase's podcast, Webbing the Surf, and it's really good, and he interviews other digital nomads that he meets in his place, so that's Pretty cool. You need to check that out. It's www.webbingthesurf.com. And I have a link to that, to his podcast, in the show notes to this episode of the show. So definitely check that out if you are at all interested in becoming a digital nomad, or at least finding out what these digital nomads do. And when you are in Puerto Vallarta, you might want to take up Chase on his free day pass if you think that Vallarta Co-Work would be a good fit for you during your stay in paradise. And maybe after going there, you might decide digital nomadery is for me. Is that a word? Well, if it isn't, I like it. Digital nomadery. Okay. That should do it for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember that this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying, thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were going to be using someone else, so just do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, he's got his maps, he's got his DIY tours, his revitalized happy hour board, and more. I got links to those in the show notes to check them out. And once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time and subscribe and give me a good review on iTunes if you would. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, go to my website, check out each episode that I create. I have links to the things that all the people talk about. I've got pictures of the places that I've visited. It's a lot of fun. It's a very, very good way to get information about Puerto Vallarta. So if you haven't been there, get there and check it out. All right? Okay. So, thank you, Chase Buckner of Vallarta Co-Work. I have pictures of this place. I've got pictures of Chase, and I also have links to all the places that Chase recommended, like I do for every podcast, okay? And don't miss those videos of the Los Muertos Pier that, when it was being built way back then. Thank you, Brad, for all of those. And hey, thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino eterno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río cuando todo está en calma. Pronto cae la noche, me brillas Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.